Luck on Sunday, proudly sponsored by Al Basti Equiworld Dubai.
Well, we know what sort of a year it's been, but even 2020 couldn't stop Aidan O'Brien.
It's Love who's clear. She's well clear as they race to the line. 3 or 4 length victory for Love in the Kimco 1,000 guineas.
It's Pacewell and Sona Michael Tabor's day. Pacewell won the 1,000 guineas. Santiago is digging to the end. Santiago, 14 Irish derbies for Aidan O'Brien. And Love comes right away, galloping clear in tremendous style to win the Oaks. He's made it all, he's out clear all the way. It's 6 or 7 lengths still, and Serpentine for a remarkable win in the Investec Derby.
As they head inside the final furlong, it's St Mark's Basilica under Frankie leading Wembley. Pressing, then came Thunder Moon. It's St Mark's Basilica though to win the Dewhurst.
Roll up, it's Magic Hell over their side. Who's trying to exact revenge on Gaia? It's Magical for her second Irish champion state.
And Aidan joins me now live from Ballydoyle. Aidan, good morning.
Good morning, Nick. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm just looking back at that highlights reel there. 2020 for you must have been slightly surreal, mustn't it? Sort of watching on most of those races from home.
Yeah, I suppose it was different. Absolutely, Nick. I suppose it was great that there was racing on. I suppose so. Really, we were very happy to stay home and watch it from home. But we have a great team of people, and everybody did a great job. And I know, like I say, it was great for everybody that racing was held. Really.
When the pandemic really started to grip in sort of February, March time, and you knew that things were changing quite rapidly, how did you have to react? How did it change your regime as you're really starting to step up the work with some of these good horses?
Yes, I suppose it was a little bit strange. All right, we carried on as normal, hoping that the guineas and all those races would be on at the same time. So we stuck to our own regime, and I suppose instead of racing them, we gave them days away around that time, and we kind of just had to wait. We didn't panic too much. We just kind of stayed in as much of a rhythm as we could. It was a little bit strange, a little bit different, and I suppose some horses found it different, and some suited and some it didn't suit, you know. So I suppose we played it by ear, really.
A lot of people have felt quite restricted during the course of the year, and they've been in bubbles. I suppose, in a sense, you're so wed to Ballydoyle that it is a little bit of a bubble in its own right, anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We would have been always very biosecurity conscious here in every way. Viruses was always our main danger in keeping the horses healthy, and everyone would have been always very much that way, changing their clothes before and come from different yards or whatever. Everything was always very biosecurity. So I suppose it, and like you said, like it is, we're in a little bit of a bubble here. We don't move out that much, and it's kind of a fairly controlled environment usually, Nick.
I mean, did it tax you, or were you just determined just to stay as relaxed as you possibly could in those early weeks when sort of plans were flying left, right, and centre? Were you just trying as hard as you possibly could to keep it nice and calm?
Yeah, I think that was it exactly. There was no pressure from anybody, and that's all we could really do is just stay relaxed and play it by ear and take it week by week, really. And to try stay in as much of a rhythm as we could with the horses and with everybody else, I suppose, too, really.
Do you think, when you look back on the season as a whole and you look at the horses who've done well and the horses who've done perhaps less well than you'd expected, do you think there have been any that have really been beneficiaries of the season being different, or horses that might have done better had it worked out traditionally? Are there sort of winners and losers from this, do you think?
Yeah, I think there always is, but it's very hard to know that, really. And really, you're training horses kind of week by week, really day by day, and seeing what's happening, what they're changing. And like some will like maybe when we get into next year and look back at this year, then we'll have an idea, did that suit or did it not? When we go back into a normal program, I suppose it's very hard to say really, like whether it suits them or not. And we kind of always, the only time we'd ever look back is kind of look back and see what we did the year before, if something went wrong or something was good, and if we changed anything the following year, if you know what I mean.
And just looking at the most recent success, Aidan, Mogul was a brilliant winner last weekend in Hong Kong. Yeah, he, I guess, is an example of a horse who's had to sort of duck and dive a little bit this year because of the late start, and you were saying he's a hard horse to get fit. If you'd started him, say, in March, April, and got a couple of runs into him, he might have been a Derby winner come the end of June.
Yeah, I think so, Nick. Like, I suppose it ideally didn't suit him. Maybe when you look at it, we had planned on getting 2 runs into him before the Derby. Like, obviously that just wasn't to be, and everything was a little bit forced and a little bit rushed with him. He's a big, powerful, strong horse, and we knew that he would take racing. And as the season went on, that proved so. The more racing he got, the better he got. So you could say it didn't suit him. But listen, at the same time, it suited others. And he did come, like, we did get him there at the end. So yeah, it's very hard to say really what suits or doesn't suit until you look back from the year gone by, if you know what I mean, because you could do what you think suits and it mightn't suit at all, really.
I mean, I'll come back to him in a minute, but obviously, yeah, he may not have been quite ready for Epsom. One horse who definitely was Serpentine. Lee Mottershead's done a brilliant piece in the Racing Post today, sort of charting everyone's views and thoughts on that day and what was a helter-skelter and a pretty weird Derby to watch. When you were watching it, what were you thinking sort of midway through the race?
I suppose we were very happy where Emmett had him. Emmett gave him a great ride. He was tactically very aware, he was very strong at the finish, and he was very focused, and he got his fractions absolutely spot on. I suppose we were very happy all the way. When he broke and he got the position he was in, he's a very relaxed horse. He doesn't over-race, he stays very well, very uncomplicated and very balanced. So I suppose, listen, after going a furlong, we were very happy where Emmett was, because we knew that the pace was going to be even, so that was going to suit the rest of the horses, and we knew if Emmett's horse was good enough, he had him in a good enough position, and he did everything absolutely 100%, like he executed it to perfection, really.
Emmett said to me after the race in the interview, he said, Aidan told me, go out there, you can win the Derby. Is that the sort of message you give to all the jockeys to try and get them revved up before the race? Or did you have a particular feeling for this horse? Did you have a particular gut instinct that he could actually run, like, off his face, basically?
Yeah, well, like, obviously, Nick, I suppose every horse that runs in a race, we don't ever run them unless we could see some case of circumstances that horse could win the race. And then what we would do after that, then we would discuss what tactics suit each horse and to try and execute that. I suppose really for us, we like to have horses that like to be ridden handy, and if we have a few in it, it's great to have something that likes to be ridden mid-division, and then something maybe out the back, because you have a chance whatever way the race goes tactically then. Obviously he was a very well bred horse. He won his maiden, I think, 9 or 10 lengths his last run at the Curragh. Like, he galloped through the line and went right down to the boards with weighing on him. So we did believe that it could happen. Like, Emmett like, has a great brain. He's a very intelligent fella, and he knew, and he knew that it could happen. Obviously, like, if it went his way. But, like, obviously in racing, so much happens in a race that you can't control. So much happens in a race that you can't control. Listen, most of the time it doesn't go the way you really want it, but it does happen sometimes. And listen, he had to be a good horse to do what he did. It was an even pace, and like, he really ran through the line, Nick, you know. So I suppose everyone did believe that could happen, and we wouldn't have been running him there if not. Like, obviously we would have discussed it with the lads before, and then everyone would have made the decision, listen, we would let him run and see what was going to happen. Like, he's a homebred, top and bottom, so no, it was great.
I was interested in what you said there, that you like to cover the bases tactically when you've got all these runners in races. So you'd always, you'd want a couple of front runners, you'd want maybe a couple of stalkers and a couple of closers as well. But if you turned up with a bunch of horses who all roughly had the same profile, they were all really strong gallopers, they were all likely to be really strong stayers, would you alter some of their games just so you could cover those bases? Well, how would you play that? I find that quite interesting.
No. Yeah. Yeah, no, we wouldn't, Nick. We would always do exactly what suits each horse, and sometimes you might look at a race and you might see a couple of hours going forward and going very fast, and sometimes when horses like to be ridden handy, we don't change that. But because that can happen sometimes when a few take each other on up front, it can suit the ones at the back, but that wouldn't be intentionally ever. Like every horse would, and every rider would have a set of instructions that they would think would suit their own horse, and if it was playing against some of ours, so be it. But in all those races, they're running to win if they can. Like obviously sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes you look foolish after it, and sometimes it does work out and it looks great, but that's just the way it is. We train them all individually to try and give them the best chance to win the race. We would know as much about them as we could from listening to the lads riding them and their pedigrees and what their brothers or their sisters or their mum and their dad like to do in races, and all those things can come into the equation really.
Now, after last weekend, quite understandably, there were lots of people saying, this is brilliant, Mogul's going to be the great flag bearer for Ballydoyle next year, and I was thinking, hang on a minute, has everyone forgotten about Love already? This is massive recency bias, isn't it, Aidan? I mean, she was the best horse by miles in the middle of the year.
Yeah, no, she's a great filly, Nick. Like obviously a very special filly to do what she did, and like I suppose it's easy to forget about what she did in the Guineas, and then she went and did it in the Oaks, and then she was having her prep for the Arc in York. So like, listen, she's very special, Nick. Always has been. Like when you see them doing it from a mile to a mile and a half, the way she does it, she's very uncomplicated. Ryan rides are great, and no, she's something really to look forward to for next year.
I mean, she absolutely annihilated her Oaks field. She was brilliant. Is she okay? I mean, obviously we haven't seen her for a little while, and you had the issues going into the Arc, and she may not have run anyway because of the soft ground. But is she hale and hearty now? Are you looking forward to an uninterrupted campaign with her next year?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, Nick, she's just before I came on to you, she's just after doing her canter in up the front, and yeah, Chloe rode her this morning, and Jamie is very happy with her. Stephen, who rides her out every day, couldn't be happier with her. So she's done very well physically, and we're looking forward to next year with her.
And for a filly like her, do you just keep her ticking over? She doesn't get like a complete break. Do you keep her ridden all the way through the winter and just sort of keep her simmering?
Yeah, I suppose it's every horse is different. She had a little break after Arc weekend because obviously she was trained for the Arc like there was no tomorrow, and that was always the plan. And when you do that, they do need a little bit of a rest after. So she got a rest, and she's just back cantering again, back slowly. So I suppose it depends. Some horses, like Mogul, he will keep going because he's a big, strong, powerful horse, and he's much happier and he's much happier mentally and physically to be moving. So I suppose they're all different really, Nick, but she had a little break after the Arc because of that, and we had it in her head that the ground could be on the soft side, so we knew that she was going to have to be very fit. So obviously when it went the way it was, and then with all the circumstances, it just wasn't to be.
I mean, we talked about it quite extensively at the time. I don't think I've ever heard you quite as vexed as you were over the contaminated horse feed situation that meant that you couldn't have any runners in the Arc. I mean, now when you reflect on it in the cold light of day, can you just recall how stressful that period was for you and your team?
Yes, it was unbelievable, really. I suppose the good thing about it is everyone was involved. Like we spoke a lot about it, and John, Michael, Derek, and MV, and Paul, and everyone. We spoke to Eduardo, everybody was all happening together, and any calls we had, they were all conference calls, and the decisions were made as we went along. It was changing all the time. Obviously, when we took the first samples, we thought for Saturday's runners, we thought it might be okay, but then when the samples came back from the French lab, there was no way they could run. And listen, the lads are very philosophical about it, and they knew that for the integrity of racing, there was no way that we could chance or we could run them. So, like obviously, the lads made the decision, and that makes things very easy for us. They had all the information, and they decided just that was the right thing to do. So, listen, it was incredible, really. If someone told you it could happen or was going to happen, you couldn't believe it. But listen, that's life and that's racing. And, like, things happen that we never expect or could ever expect or ever even dream about. But that was the way it was, and we just weren't meant to be there that weekend, and that was it, really.
When you saw how it all unfolded, is there any sense in which it was a blessing in disguise because of the conditions in Paris, or were you just very cross not to be involved?
I know, sure, listen, you're never, I suppose, cross because there's no point and there's no it absolutely gets nobody anywhere. So we accepted it the way it was. We were obviously, some of the races we thought would have suited some of the horses, like we were very happy with the horses, and the horses that were in the Arc, we were very happy with every one of them. They had all trained well, they had been trained hard, so like obviously we were looking forward to it. Some of them were going to go forward, some of them were going to take their time. So then we had Colt and the filly in the two-year-old races, and we had Loopy the Fernandez, and we'd filly in the fillies race. So listen, it was just unbelievable that it could happen, but it did happen. And listen, it's gone now, and it's far from a problem, really.
Just talking about the two-year-olds who did reappear the next week, you ended up having the first and second home in the Dewhurst with St Mark's Basilica and Wembley. I mean, who do you think is your leading three-year-old hope for the first part of next year? That sort of leading mile and a quarter horse for next year. Who's the clubhouse leader at the moment?
Yeah, it's very hard to know. Like, obviously, those two colts wouldn't have been in the Dewhurst if that had happened. St Mark's Basilica was to go to the Group 1 in France that day, and then Wembley would have ran in the Dewhurst. So, listen, so you'd imagine, like, obviously St Mark's Basilica won, and Wembley was second, so both of those could have ran in separate races. And then obviously we ran Wharf and They Were Found in America. He ran a lovely race. So I think we have some very nice two-year-olds, I suppose, because the season was such a mess. Especially with the two-year-olds, they kind of got lost a little bit in the middle, and we had to run some of them a little bit more than we wanted to. And Wembley would be one of those, an example of that. So I suppose like every year, Nick, there's horses there that are going to make good improvement. Some mightn't make the improvement that we hope, but there is some of them there, and like, it will be interesting to see what the spring will bring. But when you have those type of horses with that kind of high-class form, any one of those could make a jump right to the very top. But like, we think we have some nice horses for next year.
But I mean, I know you don't like putting your neck on the block too much, but these horses have all established themselves at pattern level. So it's not as though you're building them up unduly. You know, you talked about the Dewhurst 1-2. We've got Battleground, the horse you referenced there, by Warfront out of Found, who ran such a fine race in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And this High Definition, who's already a short price favourite for the Derby, the Beresford Stakes winner. That horse has got an awful lot of people excited. Does he excite you as much?
Yeah, he was always very special, Matt. He's a big, long, scopy horse with a great mind. The plan was to give him 2 runs. He ran at the Curragh one very easy first time, and then he ran into Beresford, and the same thing, like seriously impressive. Like, he's a big, high cruiser that can quicken, and when you're watching him, you don't see him quicken. But we saw what he did that day in the Beresford, which is unbelievable. And you'd say he wasn't going to win a furlong and a half down. A furlong, you'd still say he couldn't win, and he won real snug on the line. You know, so there's another horse there, Van Gogh, that won in France, like, massive, big, powerful horse as well. Could be anything as well. So, listen, like you said, High Definition has always been very exciting type of horse, and the plan was always that he would be trained probably for the Derby next year. He's had his 2 runs for education at the Curry. He ran straight and then he ran around the bend, so he would have learnt a lot. But like you said, he's very exciting, really.
Could you conceivably start him in a Guineas, or is that off the menu?
Yeah, no, it's possible, Nick, because always those things are. But the lads will decide that what they want to do in the spring, and I suppose we'll see what type of Guineas horses we have. And like I said, the lads are very happy to run 2 or 3 in the Guineas sometimes. Like not always, obviously, but it is possible. But it's obviously not a definite. And I suppose that we'll see how he trains in the spring, and we'll see how he is, and whether it's the right thing or not. But I don't think he would have any problem with it pace-wise. Like I say, he's a very high cruiser and gets the trip really well.
Is Magical definitely going to stay in training? I mean, she ran another great race in Hong Kong.
She did, yeah. I'm not sure. I was speaking to MV there, and like obviously John Michael and Derek will decide that, but I suppose there's a good chance that she won't. Like obviously we were delighted to have her from last year. She's back from Hong Kong and she seems in good form. Listen, Paul did a tweet from her there when she came back, and I thought she looked great. I just saw it there on Twitter, you know. So no, I suppose there's every chance that she won't, Nick. But listen, obviously the lads will decide that next week what they want to do. Listen,
I think Aidan, you'd agree with me that if she's retired to stud now, I don't think anyone's going to say you haven't campaigned her boldly enough.
I know, she's incredible, really. Like I suppose what makes her very unusual. Like we remember her dam was a queen, and she's a queen, and obviously she's by Galileo, and she's been running at the top levels all the time since she was 2, Nick. So that's a very unusual thing for a horse to do that. And like today, she's as sound as a bell, and everything is perfect with her. And like there was a few races where circumstances didn't go her way, but listen, she's just an unbelievable filly, really.
Now, talking of unbelievable broodmares, Aidan, I want to talk to you about the dam of Order of Australia, because she produced the Breeders' Cup winner now 2 years in succession, and she's a mare that you and your wife Anne-Marie picked up for very, very little money, and she's been an amazing success story. Am I right in thinking that you've got another in the production line, haven't you? A filly by Camelot that looks as though she might be even better than those two.
Yeah, Santa Barbara is her name. She won a maiden at the Curragh. She looks very special, Nick. Everyone was, like, I suppose last year she was always the standout filly in her work. She's only had the 1 run. She won her maiden very easy. Everyone always said that she was a good bit better than the ones that went before her. She's a Camelot, a lot of class when you look at her, the way she goes through a race. She only had the 1 run, so she knows enough now for the spring, and I'd imagine there's a good chance that she could start off in the Guineas. But she looks very special at home, Nick. So, like I suppose everyone is dreaming about her at the moment. And
does it give you and Anne-Marie special satisfaction to be producing these horses as well as training them? Does that give you a different type of thrill, a different type of kick?
Yeah, no, I suppose, like obviously, like you said, Emery bought her in Newmarket. I think it's great. I suppose everybody is involved. And then obviously we were lucky that she was able to go to Camelot. So it's kind of everybody in both teams at home and in Coolmore and Ballydoyle and everywhere. Everyone is very involved, and it is great when you do have them, and you have the mayors and you have the family, and you know, so it makes it, I suppose, very special, really. I suppose it's an advantage because you know an awful lot about all the brothers and the sisters and the mum and everything, you know. So and everybody here would have that knowledge as well. So it does make it kind of very special, really. So is this next one? Do you think she's the best of the lot on what you've seen so far? Is she the most talented one? Yeah. Yeah, she looks very special, and she's very like Camelot as well. She's a very high cruiser. She's really quality looking. She's big and she's powerful, and she can quicken. And like obviously, like, you know, like he won the Guineas, so, and then went on and went up to 1.5 miles and 1.6 miles really. But she seems to have a lot of class, and she has a lot of his I suppose things that the way she behaves and the quickness and the natural ability that he has, it looks like that she has. So listen, she's very exciting, really, Nick.
Aidan, I want to talk to you about riding arrangements next year. You said last week in Hong Kong that it was the plan that Ryan would stay as #1 to Ballydoyle. Have you been in any way surprised by the speculation this season, or not really, or is it just part of the territory?
Yeah, I think so, it is. And like always, our thing is like, obviously we don't ever comment on speculation, because then if you were, you'd be commenting the whole time, and then it's very easy for somebody, if anyone's publicity about anything, they make a comment and they expect you to react, you know. So listen, that's the way it is, and obviously we all know circumstances were very different, and Ryan couldn't be here this year, and we were using everybody, and then Seamus and Seamus got suspended, and Wayne got a fall and he was out, and then I suppose Colin was there, and we used them, and that will be the way always. We'll use the best available. Like, we have great riders there. We have like Padraig and Emmett and Michael and everyone, Killian, and there's a whole team of lads, Steve, and there's a whole team of riders there that we use, but that's part of it. Like, but obviously we always find it's better not to comment on speculation, because then like you're only adding fuel to the fire. So that's why we don't. But we're hoping there next year that, listen, it won't be as restricted as we were this year, and hopefully Ryan will be able to come over a bit more, you know. So it was a strange year, like you said, Nick, and there was no point in making any comment either ways to anybody, really.
Obviously, because you run lots of horses in lots of big races, he's on the wrong end of it a few times. It's gonna happen, because it's just the way of things. If that happens a few times, do you sometimes have to almost sort of reassure him that he's still the #1 man? You know, because we know that riding is a confidence game.
No. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely, we don't, Nick. Ryan is a very professional fella, and he understands. And like, we would talk all the time about stuff, and we would go through what we're going to do, and I'd tell Ryan what I think is the right thing to do, but I always would say to Ryan, like, if you think different, like, we'll do that too. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, and we would go through the horses that we have in the race that would be unexposed, and we wouldn't be sure about how good or how bad they'd be, but we would never be surprised. But that's the way we've always worked, and I would imagine that's the way we'll always work. And like, obviously, when Ryan rides any of our horses, he's always delighted if any of ours win it, and obviously it wouldn't be human nature if he didn't like to be on him, and we would love him to be on him as well. But that's not the way life is. Like, horses run, they're all doing their best, and then we're delighted if any of them win, and because, listen, the reality of it is nobody really knows what's going to happen. You're hoping what's going to happen, and sometimes you have a good strong opinion and a good strong feeling, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Aidan, a few weeks ago, Jim Bolger, to whom you were a big part of his setup for a number of years, he did an interview where he said that he was unsatisfied or dissatisfied with the way that the testing procedures were in Ireland, and that people had an unfair advantage. It wasn't a level playing field. Do you share his view, or are you satisfied with the integrity of the sport as a whole in Ireland at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say there's no doubt about that, Nick. Listen, obviously, we've been tested a lot like everybody else, and that's the way it is. But like, I haven't spoken to anybody that thinks any different here in Ireland, and like, obviously Jim is entitled to his opinion, but listen, I don't. I would say, like, it's very clean, and I think everyone is doing a very good job here. And I think if anyone thinks different, they should talk to the authorities and tell the people about who they think is that way. Like, it's the best way, rather than just blanketing everything, saying this, that, or the other thing, because then everyone is pointing their finger at everybody. And if anyone has a gripe or anything, they go to the authorities, tell them what they think, and let them take care of it. That's really the proper way to do those things. But I would be very happy, and I think everyone is here, really, and I don't think anybody thinks any different, really.
I think you make quite an interesting point there, because whenever this sort of subject is introduced, there's lots of kind of tapping on the side of the nose and muttering under breath. Do you think there's time for a bit of a sort of open debate about about performance enhancement in sport? Do you think it's time for a sort of round-table open debate on it, and sort of people put their cards on the table and say, right, this is what's acceptable, this is what's not acceptable, this is how we're testing, this is how we should test, and make it a bit more of an open forum?
I'm not sure about that, Nick. I think like there's no I don't think there's any place for any kind of performance enhancing drugs anywhere in the world, and there shouldn't be, and there should be no drugs in any sport. Obviously, as we all know, and horses should be let run on their ability. They should be let fitness and proper, healthy, normal, natural food do the rest, and good riders and good people dealing with them. That's the way it should be, in our opinion. I think it's very simple. Like there's a list of drugs that you can't use, and if they come up, you're brought in and explained, and then the authorities take care of it. But I think it's very clear and straight, and then if there is contamination, you find out where it was. Was it accident, or was it on purpose? And if it's on purpose, then people have to pay the penalty, and have to the authorities have to act on it. I think that's the way it should be. I think it's very simple. There should be no. There should be, like, in performance enhancing drugs that are administered anyway on purpose. There should be no room for that in any sport, in racing or any other sport, I think.
Aidan, I really appreciate your time today. I just want to conclude by saying it's nearly a quarter of a century now. You probably hate me for saying that, but it's nearly a quarter of a century now that you've been consistently training winners at the very highest level. You've broken just about every record there is to break, and I think at least one of your sons, if not both, are going to be on your coattails trying to break those records in years to come. Can you identify exactly what it is that motivates you to succeed year on year on year when you've won just about everything there is to win? What is it that's still spurring you on?
I suppose, Matt, we love what we're doing. We love where we live, and like, we're delighted with the team of people and everyone. Like, it's a job, but it's a hobby all rolled into one. And this is what we do, and this is what we live for every day. And when everybody is happy around us and everybody is enjoying it, then listen, I think it's only good for everybody. But, like, obviously, it's a big commitment by everybody, and I think everybody appreciates it from each other. The commitment everyone puts in, like, obviously starts at John Michael and Derek, and obviously Sue and Gay and Mrs. Tabor and everyone. They started and they put it in, and then we all have to follow and do our best for them. Like, it's a big team effort. Everyone enjoys it every day, and listen, we just feel very privileged that we're able to do it on a daily basis, really.
And does the success of young trainers, and obviously you've bred two of them, but does the success of younger trainers, new blood in the sport, does that start arousing your own competitive instinct? Do you think, right, I've got to stay at the top because these young guys are coming through, even if they are your own family?
Oh yeah, no, that's great though, Nick. But that's, like, they're all young, fresh, young thinking minds, and which is great. They will do everything. They try learn from everybody and try find new things to improve it. And I think that's what we all learn from. And, like, obviously any young trainer coming up, you always try and stay close to them, and because they all come up with new systems and things that work. And if they work, you like to be able to use them in your own system if you can, and you try to be as open, as honest with everybody, so to help them come along, because the reality is that's the life of the soul of the sport, is young people coming on, and we have to encourage them, and like, obviously you can't give them an inch because of this sport, and you do your best to beat them in every way, but, like, it has to be competitive, and you have to help them to progress and to mature. And I think it's because they bring in a certain amount of young people with them, and I think it's great for everybody, really, when young trainers are coming along, and it's good for us as well.
And how will the next few days be for you, Aidan? Will it just be business as usual, much the same?
Yeah, we're busy, Nick, because people will start taking holidays now next week, and that's the way it is. But the horses will have to be exercised. But like it's like we love doing that. Like obviously we'll have more lots than usual, like everybody else over Christmas. That's the way it is. Look forward to Christmas, and then look forward to watching telly and watching all the different programs, and like programs like your own and everyone, all those kind of things. So that's what keeps us all. That's what keeps us all going, really.
Well, I feel suitably flattered, Aidan. Thank you, and enjoy the Christmas break with the family, and thanks so much for talking to me this morning.
No, pleasure, Nick. Thanks very much. Happy Christmas to everybody.
Subscribe to Racing TV to be notified when more Luck on Sunday videos are appearing online, and don't forget to join me for the show every Sunday morning from 9 o'clock with the best guests.